John Spence, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm so thrilled to have you back.
I'm honored to be back, and it's great to be with you too.
That's great. So for those listeners tuning in right now, John was one of the very first Paper Napkin guests back when we started this, and he's back again with far few letters on your paper napkin the first time. But I know that the concept is absolutely mind-blowing. So can I have you describe your paper napkin to everyone listening?
Sure. And it's as an equation. And the equation is II greater than EI. II greater than EI. And where this came from is you and I are both voracious readers and learners. I was driving in my car, listening to a podcast or something, I can't remember. And the person on the podcast talking about innovation said, and here it was, to be successful in the future, the rate of internal innovation must exceed the rate of external innovation. I'll say that again because it's critical. To be successful in the future, the rate of internal innovation must exceed the rate of external innovation. And it was, at first I listened to it and then I realized how big it was. I literally had to pull the car over and sit and think about it for a while because it started to just expand and expand and expand and become almost to the verge of overwhelming.
Well, so my first inclination when I hear something that big is, wait a minute, that can't be necessarily true. I mean, there are companies that are, let's say, resource based or whatever, that have this unfair advantage, let's say, in the marketplace. Does it apply for everybody? I mean, there's somebody out there listening right now saying, no, that won't work in my market. I've got a leg up. Well,
I think it's going to apply at different degrees. You know, one of the things when I teach strategy, we look at, are you in an extremely stable and, unchanging environment one? So in technology, this is going to be out of control. In other things, you're still going to get impacted because of the pace of technology. That's what's the sort of the determining factor that's going to hit everybody, no matter where you are, is your industry might be a little bit more stable, but when everything around you becomes unstable and every other business is moving and your customers have new demands and they expect things in a different way, you're going to have to innovate. And you're going to have to innovate a lot. And on that scale, I think most of us are going to be at the end that it's going to be a massive amount of innovation in order to stay truly successful.
Yeah, and I think that the way that this shifts thinking, the speed of change in the world is unbelievable. When you think about companies like Uber, the sharing economy companies and these other technology companies are just blowing things up, blowing up the construct. Is that what this is all about?
Well, it's about a couple things. It's about completely disruptive new business models like Uber and things like that. But here's the two ways I look at it is, number one, that means in order for your company, your organization to be successful in the future, you've got to out-innovate, you've got to out-create, you've got to out-experiment, you've got to out-deliver everybody you compete against. And for most companies now, that's global. So not only is the pace of innovation and the requirement higher, but now it's a broader scope because you're basically competing with anybody on the face of the earth. And then here's the big one for me is for you personally, as an individual in your career to be successful in the future, you have to out-innovate anyone else in the world that's doing what you do. And I was recently at a university teaching, giving a guest lecture to a group of engineers that were in an entrepreneurship program, mechanical, computer engineers, things like that. They were all graduates or in graduate school, getting ready to leave. They all wanted to start companies. And I looked at them and said, do you realize that the easiest learning you've ever done in your entire life was this last couple of months or weeks where you were here at the university? Because the second you get out of here, it's all on your shoulders. And technology is moving so fast, it's going to be almost impossible to keep up with. And I'll give you a real quick example. iPhone. I carry an iPhone. If I wanted to buy something that does what my iPhone 6 does, the accelerometers, the GPS, the video, the communication, all the thing an iPhone does, if I wanted to buy something that did that in 1982, when I graduated from high school, it would have been the size of 2 tractor trailer trucks and cost, ready for this, $3.2 billion. Can you imagine running down to the cell phone store and stroking a check for $3.2 billion to buy a phone? Today, and I just bought a new one last month, it's about $700. And an amazingly impressive piece of technology getting faster and better every day. But because of Moore's law and other things, the technology, if you go out 10 years, just 10 years, I will be able to buy something that does everything an iPhone does, everything, for $5, and it will be the size of a human blood cell. When technology is that fast, that ubiquitous, that cheap, it impacts everything. And that's just one area. We could go into robotics, we could go into artificial intelligence, and you could go on and on. But here's the key is these are not things that might happen one day. These are things that are already developed. It's just the speed of computing as it compounds each year or every 18 months will take these things and take them to a level that we can't even imagine. Driverless cars, robotics in surgery. I mean, it's here now.
Yeah, and you know, your example around the iPhone is absolutely mind blowing. I mean, just got to slow that down for a second. Everything that an iPhone does back in 1982, right? 1982, 2 truckloads, $3.2 billion, and 10 years from now, you're talking about that being $5 and the size of a human blood cell.
Yeah. Let's use another one.
That's crazy.
Oh no, I mean, think of the computing power that you'll be able to put in everything into your body. I mean, we'll be able to inject small computers into your body that will have massive amounts of computer. And even if you only get half there or you get a quarter there, it's still insane. I'll use it on a biological thing. I was telling you, I was recently at a thing called the Abundance 360, part of the Singularity University. We had about a dozen of the world's top thought leaders there talking about innovation, and Craig Venter was there, one of the people who has been credited as part of the team that decoded the human genome. The first time they did that, the first time they decoded a single human genome, it was $100 million. Now they've got it down to $1,000, and in about 5 to 8 years, it'll be down to $10. In 15 years, it'll be basically free. I mean, it'll be $1. They went from $100 million to $1 in about 20 years. That's insanity. Now, apply that across a broad spectrum of other things. Technology, robotics, computer thing. It's, you know, you look at what's the big computer? Watson. You know, Watson that IBM created to play chess against people, and it was on Jeopardy. Well, Watson was developed to find unknown or known knowns. What's 3 billion times 4 trillion? And literally in a trillionth of a second, bam, it just gives it to you. But now they're using Watson to find unknown unknowns. They were looking at a cancer that the doctors have been working on for about 20 years, gotten it down to 3 or 4 proteins they thought probably caused it. So they loaded 22 million pages of information into Watson. And in about 36 hours, it basically gave him the answer. Or what they said is it saved him about 25 years of work. And it did it in 2.5, 3 days. Remember that computer, Watson, doubles in speed every 18 months and halves in price. Take that out for another 10 years, and Watson sits on your desk, and it costs maybe $1,000. It's just insanity.
Yeah. So you know what's really interesting about this, and I'm looking at this. You know, the internal innovation has to be greater than external innovation. You know, talk about what that means from a perspective of intellectual property. I mean, if the $100 million human genome tracking in 10 years can go down to $1, like literally 4 quarters, you could buy it in a vending machine, right? And it won't be a vending machine. It'll be a drone that drops it off, and you plug it in because you think it 10 years from now. But if that's the trajectory, what do we need to be thinking about when it comes to IP, when it comes to intellectual property? I mean, do we need to start reframing that? Because it's not property. Property is static. It's an asset. It's something that sits there. Maybe it's intellectual process that's more important.
Yeah, exceedingly well said. It's going to be process, strategy, personal innovation. Because as soon as you invent something, you know, and we're getting way out here, we're having fun with it, but as soon as you invent something, there's probably somebody else who's inventing something even faster, or the things that you base it on will change so quickly that it's going to change. So it's going to be, I think, more about process. And I think we're seeing a lot more with open source and things like that people say, you know, might as well just share this now, because it's probably going to, in 3 iterations, which will be in about 5 weeks. It'll be something new already. But the thing that's really fascinating for me, and from the Paper Napkin Wisdom aspect, is on the personal level. This means that you've got to commit yourself to personal Kaizen, to continuous incremental improvement every single day, learning, growing, studying, researching, innovating personally. And you and I talked, my last napkin was, you become what you focus on and like the people you spend time with. And I think that now that's even more relevant than ever, that you've got to focus on the right stuff. You've got to be constantly improving your game, and you've got to surround yourself with people that are helping you learn, supporting you, coaching you, giving you new knowledge and information. I've had a mastermind group of top CEOs that I put together, that I've had basically my entire career. I've always surrounded myself with mastermind groups. But just in the last year, I've had more and more people approach me about forming more networks, more mastermind groups, because they simply said, I can't keep up on my own. I need 5 or 6 friends to help me bring, like you and I are doing today, bring each other new ideas, new innovations, help grow our businesses, help improve our lives. And I think to me, it's neat in a super hyper technology connected world that personal connections get even more important.
So let's talk about that, because that's the, it's a bit of an oxymoron, right?
Yeah.
In a technology driven world,
yeah.
Personal connections are going to become more important. Whereas now, so many of our communications are driven electronically. So many of our communications are done on these phones and texts and that kind of stuff. We're not forging those personal connections that we used to have.
Yeah, I think we're still going to use a lot of technology. But it's interesting. I'm in the middle of doing a proprietary research study of several thousand college seniors and recent college graduates, and what they look for in their future career. Interesting, a couple things they don't look for. Title is not important. Working for a big prestigious company is not necessarily important. Lots of promotions aren't important. What they want is flexibility, and they want a chance to make a difference in the world. And here's the other thing is, they want flexibility, but they don't want, and this is just blew me away, they don't want to work from home. They don't want to work from Starbucks. They want the option to do that, but they very clearly stated to me, I want to be able to go into the office and meet the other people I work with at my convenience when they're there, hang out, do stuff together, play ping pong, go have a beer, share ideas, make a personal connection. Then when I want to do my work, I might go back to my house or my cube or go over to Starbucks. But the idea of never having an office again, fascinating, because these young people said, no, the personal human connection is extremely important to me.
That's fascinating. And that's not what I would have guessed.
No. And wanting, the number one thing they look for, at least as so far in my data, is the opportunity to do important work with cool people, and make a difference in the world. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and that's fascinating, because if you go back to the notion that what keeps internal innovation faster or greater than external innovation is people and process. It's that internal Kaizen that you talked about, right? It's that daily improvement, and it's almost built into this generation that's coming up. They're saying that I need that connection to move me forward.
Yeah, because I need the other people to push my ideas, to change them around, to ask questions. I can Google an answer. I can't Google a question.
You can't Google a question. That's amazing.
Yeah, I can't ask Google to ask me an interesting question that will make me think differently. Maybe one day we'll have computers that can do that. But right now, I can ask Google to tell me what the answer is, but I can't sit down with Google and have a conversation and get it to ask me a bunch of really thoughtful, interesting, or even stupid questions that make me think in a new and different way. Only people can do that.
Yeah, so let's talk about this from an application, because I think there are entrepreneurs who run 5-10 person organizations who are listening to this right now and saying, this just doesn't apply to me. My company's too small. It's not affected by this in this way. I cut lawns, I paint houses, I build stuff, but I think it does apply, and I think you're saying it does. And can you make it simple for them?
Yeah, it absolutely applies. The quality, or no, let me put it this way. The success of your business, regardless of how large it is, even if you're a solopreneur, is directly determined by the quality of the people that you can get, grow, and keep on your team. And you're saying, wait a minute, solopreneur team, that's called your network. I'm a solopreneur, more or less. I mean, I've owned some big companies. I've run some very large companies, but it's just me, my wife, and one assistant right now. But I do have a network of about 700 executives that I've built up over the years, that if I have a problem, a question, a concern, an issue, I can send an email out and 200 or 300 people send me their best ideas. You know, I'm alone, quote unquote, but I have a team of hundreds of brilliant people that if I ask them a question, I get great ideas back. Now, the idea in that network is it's got to be 90% give and only 10% take. You know from us being friends that pretty much every week or every other week, I try to find something really, really cool and put it out to my network, which you're in, and then put stuff on blogs. So I'm constantly trying to give, but it gives you an amazing amount of confidence knowing that I don't have to have all the answers. I have this huge network of people in my industry, out of my industry, with all kinds of different expertise that are there to help me if I stumble and fall. And, you know, I'm not that smart of a guy, but I know that if I don't have the answer, I can find somebody who does. Not Google, someone who I can talk to on the phone or Skype or Zoom or whatever, and we can have a conversation, and they can, all the learning they have, they can transfer to me in a couple of minutes, and I don't have to spend days or weeks researching something or looking at 100 Google pages. I just talk to the world's leading expert or somebody in my community that knows it better than anybody else. That's powerful. And that's whether you got 1 employee, 10 employees, or 10,000 employees. The network is internal and external.
Yeah, and I think that I'm my whole body is tingling when I'm making this realization. But we're shifting from an industry and an economy of answers to an economy of questions.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And that's the shift. The shift and the realization that I'm making is it's not about the answers anymore. It's about the questions. It's about asking better questions. It's about getting better questions. It's about solving problems and being focused on asking the questions that solve those problems and understanding that if that's the mode that you're in, you will accelerate, right? I mean,
yeah. If you ask the right questions, you'll get the better answers. I mean, finding answers is easier and easier and easier with technology. And there's, you still got to think of work, but changing the question, I'm not a huge motivational speaker type fan, but Anthony Robbins has a great quote. It's one of my very favorite quotes of all times. The quality of your life will be determined by the quality of the questions that you ask yourself and others. That's a big idea. And today, when I can Google and get an answer to almost anything, or use Wolfram Alpha or something like that, or Watson, that has the ability to do 1 trillion operations a second. If the answer is out there somewhere, one of those computers can find it. But we're the ones that ask the great questions, or the new questions, or the different questions that allow us to go out and find new answers.
Yeah, and that is a decidedly human thing. So the key thing is the question. Does the question have to change every day? I mean, when you think about that Kaizen, that law of personal improvement being a little bit every day, does that have to be an everyday same question, or can it just be it's a little shift to the question? It's not a big shift; it's just a little shift. Working at it.
The same question that says, "How can I do it a little bit better today?" It could be a shift to the question, and and again, like we talked about earlier, there's a spectrum here. It's how good do you want to be? If you truly want to be cutting edge in your field, you want to be great, you want to be world class. This is an incredibly challenging hurdle to get over. I mean, this is unbelievably hard. If you just want to be mediocre, pretty good, you don't have to work at this level. So the decision is yours, is how much energy and effort do I want to put into this? But if you really want to succeed at a high level, you're going to have to innovate at a high level. And that's a big, and let me also, I've been doing a whole bunch of research on what does that group look for, the millennials and Gen Z look for a leader they would willingly follow. When we looked at one of the things, it was communication. But it wasn't being able to stand up and give great speeches and be inspiring. They expected that. What all of them said is the most important thing I look for around leadership communications is asking really great questions and listening.
And listening.
Yes.
And listening. What does that mean, listening?
Yeah. What were you saying? I didn't hear you.
No, but I joke, but it's true. Sometimes we don't hear things, and I think even some of my points around, there's someone out there saying this. So sometimes we don't hear the thing that's relevant to us, even though it's right in front of us.
Yeah, or we move so quickly. Okay, I got that. Next thing, please. Next thing, please. I think the better leaders and the more innovative people back up and go, wait a minute, hold on. And here's a couple questions I ask myself. All right, what does that mean to me? How can I use that? And what can I do right away? And I love a story I heard about Jerry Seinfeld. Somebody asked him once, wow, you must have been really funny as a kid. You must have a great sense of humor. And he said, no, not really. I just get up, and every day from the minute I get up to the minute I go to sleep, I ask myself the same question. What's funny about this? And if I'm constantly asking what's funny about this, I find a couple funny things during the day. Well, as an entrepreneur, we say, where's the product in this? How can I solve this problem? Where's the business in this? I'm big on customer service. When I walk into someplace, I get crappy customer service. The first thing I say is, I wonder if my company ever does this. How can I use this? How can I change this around? How can I apply the opposite of this to my business and make sure that I never do this to my customers? Or the reverse, if I go someplace great, how can I use this? What does this mean to me? And most importantly, what can I do right away? Because ideas in and of themselves are useless. It isn't until you take the idea and you execute it, implement it, bring it into the real world with action that it has any value.
Yeah. And I think this move, this, intellectual property turning into intellectual process, is really, really comes out when you're talking about this. And because what you're saying is, look at that external environment, look at that external innovation that's happening in the world, ingest it every single day from your lens, and then see how you could apply it in your business. And that's one way to ensure that your internal innovation is greater than the external innovation.
Yeah, and you've got to be
it out from everywhere.
That's the key point. You've got to be bold enough and curious enough, and I think curious is a great word here, to look at completely different industries. I mow lawns for a living, but I'm looking at the Ritz-Carlton, and I'm looking at the CERN particle accelerator, and I'm looking at Watson, and I'm looking at genetics, because something you learn there might have you look at it and go, oh, I could do something differently. I could be more efficient, more effective. I could bring new technology to helping my lawns grow greener, whatever it might be in my business. And from the most mundane business to the most complex business, it's that curiosity, not only looking at my industry, but looking everywhere else that, and we call this, I call it the adjacent new. I've got an idea I've known for a long time. I know it really well. I read or learn or hear about something or talk to somebody about something I've never heard of before. I put the two close to each other and see if they like each other. And maybe if we get lucky, they get along great. We got a new little baby idea. And that baby idea is now my intellectual process and my intellectual property.
Yeah, that really resonates with me, and it makes a lot of sense. And I think that what you've done is taken this really big idea of these exponential organizations, these companies, and I think that we really need to think about exponential. People don't understand what exponential means, and I heard this described really well. And I don't know what your definition is, which I'd love to hear, but it's a simple doubling, right? 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. That's exponential versus linear, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And the best way to look at this absolutely is Moore's law. Chip speeds double every 18 months and half in price. But I'll give you a money analogy. If I were to offer you $1 million cash today, big pile of cash, or 1 penny doubled every day for 30 days, which one would you take? 1 penny. Right. Double every day. Yeah. And at first people go, $1 million cash, because it goes 1 cent, then 2 cents, then 4 cents, then 8 cents. It's not looking so hot for the first couple of weeks. Then in those last couple of days, it hockey sticks. It goes straight up exponentially to $5 million. That's where we are with computers today. We've had Moore's law for about 30 years. But here's the really fascinating question. Nobody ever asked what happens if you go another 30 days with a penny. It gets to 5 quadrillion. Yeah. That's the power of 10x and compound. That's also where we're going with computers and technology. In the next 30 years, it's going to go from where we are now to, unbelievably exponential levels that are unfathomable. I mean, very hard to comprehend. And even if we don't get all the way there, they're pretty much guaranteed for the next 10 to 15 years. And that's going to be a massive, massive amount of growth. Incredible. John, our time is up today. I don't know where it went, but I'd love to have you back again. I don't want to wait another year
I hope I can bring you back again sometime soon.
Whenever you, as soon as I can come up with another good idea.
Thanks so much for being on.
My pleasure. My honor.
Hey, if you liked that episode, there's a ton more like it on iTunes. Just search Paper Napkin Wisdom. Go to papernapkinwisdom.com to find the blog and pictures of all of the paper napkins. Plus, you can also follow along on Facebook, find Paper Napkin Wisdom on Twitter at Wise Napkin. My name is Govind Jayaraman. This is Paper Napkin Wisdom. Thanks for watching. Make it a great day.